how evil only prevails when good men do nothing. And again, I've got a good friend of mine. You are a retired Green Beret. You have spent years and years and years of your life defending the freedoms of these people in this country. And, you know, I kind of want to start this podcast by reminding people of a funny group of men that really wasn't so long ago. It was a group of men who had a problem with a 3-cent tax on tea. And they got together and they kind of came up with some strategies, and they basically they started a revolution. They knew that they were putting their lives, their fortune, and even their families' lives at risk by doing what they did, but they still did this thing called the Boston Tea Party, which later led to the Declaration of Independence. And most people don't know this. It's not really taught in school, but the Declaration of Independence was just a fancy name for a declaration of war, right? And war at that time was their only way to escape tyranny and become a free society. And it meant that much to them that they put their fortunes and their lives and their families' lives on the line to do that. And when I think of the kind of guys that are out there willing to do that type of sacrifice, I can't think of anybody better in today's time than you to exemplify what that example is supposed to be. So first of all, thank you for that. Thank you for that, and thank you for everything you're doing now. And thank you for being on here with me. Believe it or not, this is a huge step for me, just to be able to talk to somebody like you and have somebody on my podcast like this. So thank you, and I mean that sincerely.
And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this, let me just read real quick the definition of what a police state is. A police state is a totalitarian state controlled by a political police force that secretly supervises the citizens' activities. That is the definition of a police state. You know, when we think of police states, we think of places like Turkey or, you know, Saudi Arabia or someplace like that. We don't really think of America as being a police state. But I'm worried about this because it seems to me like the further we get, it almost seems to me like we are becoming more and more totalitarian. You know, we've got Facebook out there, you know, they are the thought police, right? You know, Facebook, Twitter, these people are censoring everybody. And, you know, I always hear this, everybody says, oh, well, they're a private business, they can do whatever they want. But the problem with that is that they're giving their resources to the government, first of all. They're a publicly traded company, second of all. And third of all, discrimination is illegal no matter how you look at it. I can't discriminate in my business, and you can't discriminate in yours, right? So how are they allowed to legally discriminate in theirs? I mean, what are your thoughts on this kind of stuff? Am I way off base here, or am I on the right track? I mean,
no, I mean, you're definitely on the right track. And I mean, we really have to look at the history of what's happened over the last 20 years. And so realistically, what's happened over the last 20 years has set us up to the point of where we're at right now. So it almost wants to make you think, okay, was everything over the last 20 years planned? Now, when I speak about that, you know, what really led us to this point? And if you think about 9/11, and you think about, you know, an attack by terrorists attacked our country, and from that spawned, you know, the Patriot Act. And so now the Patriot Act allowed our government to be able to, you know, look into what we're doing more and more. As time went on, you know, you're looking at Obama, you know, using the IRS to spy on nonprofits to stop the flow of funding that can go to those nonprofits, which could be everything from veteran organizations to just any other organization that doesn't, go along with their plans. And the whole idea is, money is limited. So
Yeah.
if you can stop the flow of money going into nonprofits that might be willing to support veteran causes or patriot causes, that money's going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So everything that we're seeing is leading up to what's happening right now. And then if you think about politics, sometimes, they'll pick a small state. Let's say, for example, Vermont. They'll pick a small state. They'll start incorporating little things here or there. It's almost like testing the market to see what's happening.
Right.
And so they're testing the market to see what's happening in a small state, and if they can get enough exposure and enough people, following along with it, then they expand on to other states.
Sure.
Sort of right now, what you see is a lot of the blue states are, in my opinion, they are collaborating with each other to create the state of what we're in right now, which is, a heavy-handed force on the people and trying to get the police especially to do their wishes. And at the same time, they're using, under the guise of COVID, to get rid of police that will not follow along with what they want to do.
Yeah. Well, and I've said that from the very beginning. I think I've probably been the most non-conforming person out there as far as not wearing masks and not being, not taking mandate or vaccines and all that kind of stuff. And it is just now starting to affect my business in the construction industry because now I can't find employees, right? And so when I look at all of this stuff, I mean, to me, history keeps repeating itself over and over and over again. I mean, when I think about the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, I know you spent a good portion of your life up in the Northwest, and did you ever go to, what's that street up in Seattle, Fairmont Street, where they've got a statue of Lenin right up by the Art Institute? I remember as a little kid going and seeing that and asking my dad, what is it? And my dad was a Vietnam guy. My dad, that's communism, son. And, it's like, well, here's the thing. When we talk about how evil only prevails when good men do nothing, the Bolsheviks, right, the Lenin party, during the Russian Revolution. So let's look at a couple of things. First of all, the Russians were getting their asses kicked in World War I, right? I mean, Germany was obliterating them. Russia didn't even have enough they didn't even have enough boots to put on their soldiers on the front lines. And so the entire revolution, the Russian Revolution, was started as a protest to World War I. So by protesting World War, they literally started a war within their own country. Right. And this was the mentality of it. This was the mentality of the communists, saying basically they already knew that people were so desperate and so, out of touch. So they started a party that promised all kinds of nice things and all these things. And then the Bolsheviks, you got to remember, during the entire Russian Revolution, only about 30% of the entire Russian population participated in it. And so there was a huge portion of farmers and people out in the urban areas, good conservative people, right? They were good, they had their Russian Christian Orthodox at that time. They were good, solid people. They were conservatives for, today's definition.
Well, and if you look at specifically the Russian Revolution, and Russian was my language that I learned in the Special Forces course. And so, of course, with that, I studying history and reading books and everything was an integral part of everything that I did, to try and immerse myself into it. But the Russian Revolution was a series of two revolutions. To overthrow the government. And then the second was to put the Bolsheviks in power. So right now, you could see some similarities as far as removing our government, removing our history, removing the things that is America, and who's in place right now that's in power that is planning, to hold on to that power, and what are they willing to do to hold on to that power?
Well, exactly, and this takes me back to people getting checks in the mail for not working and stuff like this. It's all part of a plan to basically emasculate our society even more, right? To prevent people from working and to prevent people from, standing up to government and this kind of thing. You mentioned the police. For example, like the Seattle police right now. The King County and Pierce County police departments, whether you're talking Tacoma or Seattle or the county sheriff's department, that region has more military veterans on their police force than I can't think of another area that had. Even Fayetteville, North Carolina doesn't have as many military veterans on the police force as Seattle and Tacoma, Washington does. And all those guys, a good portion of them, they're either from first group, or they're from Ranger Bat, or one of those cases. You know what I mean? There's a few Air Force guys up in the police department up in there. But my point is these guys spent a good portion of their lives defending freedom. There's no way that they're going to stand for having that much freedom restricted. You know what I mean? So they're doing the right thing. They're doing the absolute right thing by walking off and sticking their middle finger up at those municipalities and those counties. They're doing the right thing. My question is, what's that?
Here's the problem really quick though. So the biggest problem is that our government has put the people, and people have put themselves in so much debt, thinking about, I want to buy this and I want to buy that, material things. Yeah. And then up in Washington State, especially, you got a culture up there that, you got to think this way or you're thinking the wrong way.
Yeah.
I believe that more police officers were given the opportunity to be able to leave and have a great job and make as much money and not have to lose their house and cars by leaving, they would leave in droves. But right now, a lot are staying just because they have to pay their bills.
Well, the way I look at that is really, this is where I wish that entrepreneurialism was a little bit more well known and taught. Because that's kind of my whole mantra, really, is being able to get men back into being self-reliant and not needing to rely on a government job or anything like that. And unfortunately, this happens to any industrialized country. Big corporations come in, and it's easier to work for somebody than it is to work for yourself. And so a lot of people choose that path. But regardless, I've got to give credit where credit is due. And all these cops and all these, sheriff deputies and all these guys that are doing this, they are doing the right thing. And trust me when I say it's going to work out for them. They may miss a couple of mortgage payments. They may have to go to a food kitchen or something like that. But trust me when I say they have the resilience and they have the intelligence. They're going to find their way through this. And when they do, I just keep saying this, going back to evil only prevails when good men do nothing. We've been doing nothing for a very long time, right? And it's gone long beyond 20 years. We could look at this as, going back into the 16th Amendment, right? Woodrow Wilson in 1916 and World War I. I always say this. I say, if men weren't willing to stand up against the 16th Amendment, then they're not going to be willing to stand up now. Right? If men weren't willing to stand up against prohibition in the 1920s, then they're not going to be willing to stand up now. Same thing if they weren't willing to stand up in the 1930s against, Social Security and the New Deal. We had internment camps in this country, and men were not willing to stand up against that. And so, I look at this, I am a real, I don't want to pretend that something's going to happen that probably isn't going to happen, because I am a realist. And I say it again, if real men weren't willing to stand up for things back then real men probably, there's just not enough of us to do it. You know what I mean? It would be a suicide mission. It really would be, because there's just not enough of us to stand up. But I do like seeing good men that are at least being brave enough to tell the government that they can go fuck themselves, knowing that it's going, here again, Paul Revere and George Washington, those guys knew that what they were doing was going to put their entire fortunes and their families and everything that had to do with their security in danger. right? Benjamin Franklin said it best, that anyone who gives up liberty for security has neither, or deserves neither. I can't remember what the exact quote was, but that's kind of the philosophy that is so refreshing to see with all of these cops standing up like this and walking off the force.
Well,
unfortunately, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, the 3rd to 40% that have left, they're smart. If you think about it, the government is not going to side with them. They're only one incident away from going to jail, getting kicked out, whatever. So I mean, they're smart as to know that, I've got to change my future and do something else.
Yeah. Well, now here's the problem, and this kind of takes me back to the Cheka police of the Bolsheviks party. So, originally the Cheka police was made up of some higher up military guys and good people. I mean, they were good people, but anybody who resisted the Bolsheviks was eventually either killed or just completely pushed out. And that's kind of what's happening now here. Pierce County, King County, Dade County. I mean, whatever county you want to look at with a liberal population, they're going to replace those officers with like-minded officers that are going to, bend to the government's every wish. There's no doubt about it. They're going to replace these guys, and that's going to create an even bigger. It's going to create a terrible police system, and their tactics are going to get more and more brutal. America has. I mean, I've got the statistics. You were talking about the Patriot Act. Did you know that in 2013? Where is it at? 2013. The NSA did over 9,000 tower dumps. So they in the last 40 years, our prison population has risen by 700%. Right? We have the highest incarceration rate per capita in the world. We have the highest recidivism rate per capita in the world. And we have more law enforcement personnel per capita. When you calculate municipal, county, state, and federal law enforcement agents, you have more law enforcement officers per capita than any country in the world. And that is insanity to me. I mean, obviously, crime is industry, right? I mean, we talk a lot about this kind of stuff. Crime is industry. I mean, that's like half of the U.S. economy, right? Is our judicial system, lawyers, judges. I mean, it's its own business. It's its own economy and the U.S. has made a lot of money off of it. This is kind of the problem that I have. Back in 2016 when everybody was running against Trump, I don't know if you saw that, like Ted Cruz and all those guys. You remember that?
Yep.
So I was a huge Ted Cruz guy. I mean, I was like, Ted Cruz is my guy. I ended up voting for Trump, but then I started doing research on Ted Cruz after the election was over, and I found out that his number one sponsor or his number one political contributor is CCA prisons. And I don't know if you're familiar with CCA. I mean, they're all over Texas, and they're really big in Texas and Arizona and those states like that. Yeah. And I used to work for a company where we built prisons, and that's how I got introduced to CCA is by building some of their facilities. And, it's a complete scam. I mean, it's privatized prisons. These CEOs, it's costing taxpayers so much more money to do that than it would just to have the normal government-controlled prison systems. And, the problem with it is that when I see these guys contributing to people like Ted Cruz, that tells me that he's trying to purposely make more and more laws so that people can get arrested so that CCA can keep funding itself. So, I look at politics kind of like the WWE, right? I look at it all, they're like mortal enemies on stage, but as soon as they get behind closed doors, they're all, drinking beers with each other and stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's just crazy to me how the American people aren't able to see kind of what's going on. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I almost feel like it wasn't a waste of time for me to serve, but sometimes I really feel like some of these people don't deserve it. You know what I mean? They don't deserve to have their freedoms given to them You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the biggest problems too, is that nobody has had to earn their freedoms because they've got 3% of the population out there earning it for them. And it kind of breaks my heart. It kind of breaks my heart. It really does.
Well, you know, in many ways, there's a lot of times I think that we spent 20 years overseas fighting wars, fighting tyranny, fighting against these people that, you know, were terrorists and wanted to take us down, only to find out that the biggest threat to America was right here in America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, didn't Bin Laden say that? You know, America's never going to lose from a foreign invasion. We're going to lose from tearing ourselves apart from within. You know, and that's you know, again, I think this has been coming down the tracks for a long time. I really do. I don't think that this is anything new. I mean, I think this has been kind of the plan from the beginning. You know, America is so unique because we do have the ability to fight against that if we want to, right? I mean, at the end of the day, our destruction comes from within us. It doesn't come from the government. The government can only do what we allow it to do. And you know, I would even take it one step further and say, and you know, I don't know what the recourse is going to be for this, but I can say honestly that, you know, if there's ever any type of a revolution, it's not the government who needs to be gone after. It's people, you know, it's the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gateses. I mean, those are the people that are doing the evil, right? Those are the people that are controlling the government. And, you know, I mean, look at Facebook. I mean, every single time I get on Facebook, I can't even make a comment to one of my own relatives, right? I mean, I've got 2 daughters in Germany. You know, every time I even try to talk to them on Facebook, like I'll share a post or something or a meme, and Facebook will put me in jail for 3 days every single time. And I haven't even said a single bad word or nothing.
Wow.
And it's like, no, I get it. I mean, I put myself in that situation. I did cause some ruckus, you know, to kind of get the, you know, the big guys to watch after me, I guess. Yeah. Right. But it all goes back to the same thing where they're discriminating against the people that they don't want to be heard, while everybody else is allowed to run around free and say all kinds of shenanigans. And I just don't, you know, I mean, how is this even? I think that, you know, I don't think that a lot of people out there are smart enough to see what's going on. I really don't. I don't think that they're smart enough. I don't think that they're, you know, experienced enough. And I really, you know, and it talks about this in the Bible, right? How the shepherd tends to his herd, right? And you know, this has been going on since the beginning of the human race, right? There's always been some sort of tyranny. There's always been people that have tried to fight against it. And, you know, this is how different societies are formed. And, you know, this is just history. This is how it goes. So I guess my biggest question to you is, what actually can we do?
That's a great question. And, you know, at this point right now, it is one of the most difficult questions of all time, because what we don't know for sure is that can they rig the elections? You know, and if they can rig the elections, then there's nothing else that we can do, because they're just going to keep on gaining control, and they're going to, you know, continue to their push of tyranny and what they want to do. So if there is no elections that are, you know, fraudulent, and it is straight and there's no issues, I mean, we know that there is, you know, fraud within our voting systems, but at what scale? That's the biggest concern. So if there still is a chance, the biggest thing, of course, is making sure that the people can understand what is happening. So if you think about anything, you started a business, you're in business, and there's a million things that you didn't know before you started that business, until someone opened your eyes, until somebody showed you how some things are done. And a lot of things, because you've got competition, nobody's exactly going to open up their books and say, hey, this is what you need to do to flourish with your construction business. I mean,
mine was almost 100% trial and error. I can tell you that. I basically had no mentors other than, some experiences of when I was a kid growing up around my grandpa and stuff. But I mean, as far as, I had to fail pretty hard a couple of times. I mean, man, I could tell you some stories.
Yeah, because the only people that really know about your industry are those that are already in the industry, and they're not going to share the most vital secrets in the world. So, of course, I'm in marketing. I'm a marketing agency nationwide. And every single day I get hit up by people that are saying, hey, learn this about marketing, learn that about marketing. What they will never tell you is their secret sauce. What is their secret to ensuring their success? They won't tell you. So, that is just a close held secret that only they will hold on to. So it's the same thing as far as, our country. People got to understand that at a moment's notice, this country can radically shift quickly. Look at Sudan today. Sudan, there's a coup. Now all of a sudden those people are going to be following under a more Islamic regime that's there. So their lives are going to change. If you look at coups that happen around the world, it happens, all the time. So people's lives change. Think about the guys, the SF guys that were in Kuwait when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. Nobody ever knew that was going to happen, but instantly, they're in a place where their lives are radically changed, especially if, we didn't come in and take Kuwait back. But so people have to be brought up to speed as far as what is going on in the world and why it's vital for them to fight back. And they have to know history. But the problem is that a lot of people are so comfortable, and in their minds they're thinking nothing's going to happen. Look, today is just the same as yesterday, and they don't understand that they're losing their freedoms every single day. Yeah. So making sure that you're vocal and speaking up. Think about it like this too. Everything that's happening is according to a plan. Yeah. This is not random. Everything that's happening is, and when I say according to a plan, these guys, have you ever studied game theory?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So game theory, these guys are studying, what happens in this situation, in this scenario, in this master plan that we have. And then there's many plans within the plan. So, and within each of those, they're saying, okay, what will happen if this happens? What happens if the people, don't go along with us? What is our plan for that? And they're using supercomputers to be able to, to plan this out and give scenarios about what can possibly happen.
Yeah. So, well, and this takes me back. A lot of those guys are the ones actually building these supercomputers, right? Yeah. It's these guys. That's kind of another thing too that's very interesting. Back in the old days, it was the big, beefy, burly hunter guy that was like the alpha male, right? And now we've got these little scrawny, computer geeks, and they're running the world, and that's kind of the difference between. It's just a shift in mentality, right? It's a complete shift in our culture and I mean, I talk about this on just about every podcast I do. We have religious factors that are going into this. We have philosophical factors, political factors. It's all part of our general philosophy, but that's what people don't understand is that they're the ones allowing this to happen by changing their mindsets and becoming softer and I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, really, I mean, this is what it is.
So guys like us, especially, that are, big in technology as well, we depend on some of these guys. For me, I built my own social media platform. So I operate off of that platform. If something happens, I can easily reach out to them. I've got over 23,000 people just in my email list, text message lists. So I've been building these things up, especially over the last couple of years, because in a way I saw, hey, things are going to rapidly change. You saw the Facebook go down for about a day. When that happened, did we know it was going to be for a day, a week, 2 weeks, a month? How long was it going to take? And for everybody that's operating off of social media, especially Facebook, how much money you're going to lose, how much are your clients going to lose by that going down? So, I bet you anything, most people do not have the phone number of everybody that's on their friend list on Facebook.
I can tell you that if I lost my phone, I would be completely screwed. I wouldn't even know how to call my wife because I don't even have her number memorized. Yeah, that's how reliant I am on this type of technology, and it's crazy to me. You know, because when I think about, especially, you know, like the World War II generation, right? They came back from war and they built some badass businesses, and they had it all up here in their heads. You know, they didn't have a MacBook or any of that stuff to log everything down. And they did it just fine, right? I mean, they went out there and they marketed, they went out there and they built, and they did it just fine. And I almost wish that we would get back to that. You know, I love technology as much as the next guy, but I wish that we could get back to some of those old-fashioned ways just to be a little bit more self-reliant, because I do think that that's part of the problem is we're way too dependent on technology. And I know when I was in college, they talked a lot about future shock, you know, where we would get to a point where humans would literally not be able to survive without technology. And then one day technology would be gone, and, you know, that would eradicate like 93% of the world or whatever, you know. I mean, but, you know, there's been books written about that. And I mean, even thinking back to movies like 1984, right? George Orwell's 1984. I mean, that's kind of what that whole concept was about, you know, where the thought police had so much power because of their technological advances that they could keep people from even loving each other. And I wonder how far off we are from having that type of thing happen to us. I mean, how far off are we when?
Yeah, I mean, I tell everybody, though, again, you know, get online and get the phone number of everybody that you know at a minimum.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and that way if you have to, you can call, you can text. Really, if you lose communication because you lose the technologies, they're gone. There's not much you can do. But I think the bigger threat before even losing the technologies is going to be losing electricity.
Yeah, well, I think so too.
I think that especially if China wants to take over eventually, you know, they've got to disrupt us, and the biggest way that they could possibly disrupt us is going to be to take our power. You take our power, and this country will turn into absolute chaos in 3 days.
Well, I mean, it's proven every time we have a tornado or something, right? I mean, every time, you know, a place gets shut down for a couple of days and there's massive, you know, anarchy, you know, people trying to feed their kids and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, heck, look at Corona when it first started happening. No toilet paper, no food on the shelves, and people were going crazy. I don't know. Here in Atlanta, I mean, there was several murders. You know, the crime rate in Atlanta has gone up 300% since the beginning of COVID. And, you know, we haven't had a massive police walk-off here. They're starting to kind of do it now. But in the beginning, I mean, we really didn't have a massive police walk-off. I mean, everybody was kind of keeping the status quo. But we had a 300% increase in crime. And you know, it's kind of like, man, people really don't know what to do if they don't have those bare necessities that they think they need. You know, I mean, you know, I was amazed to see that toilet paper was something that people would freak out about, but it was a big deal, you know?
Yeah, you know, people have to have a plan. I mean, I was the HOA president of my neighborhood a few years ago. And I mean, I had everything planned as far as, you know, if we had to put security guards to block off our roads from having people come in, to roving patrols, you know, the volunteers who would, you know, help out. And that, you know, we had 187 homes. So we had a plan in place, you know, just in case anything was to happen, because, you know, it's always good to plan. And now you are actually seeing, I mean, look at San Francisco, business there are hiring private security companies to watch over them and police their areas. And you're going to probably see an explosion of private companies that are going to start doing the same thing. They're going to protect properties, protect neighborhoods, because, yeah, crime is skyrocketing like crazy, especially in blue states.
Yep. Well, I mean, just out of curiosity, while I got you here, who do you think is the biggest threat to America? Do you think it's China?
Well, yeah, I mean, China is definitely the biggest. So, I mean, their overall goal is worldwide domination. So, how are they going to get to that goal? You know, and I think the biggest near-time threat is China, especially because now is when America is at its weakest. You know, we've been at war 20 years. People don't necessarily want to go back to war. You know, we got the weakest president we've ever had, and the non-existent vice president, and really Congress just is, you know, already, you know, doing whatever their party says. So China is definitely the biggest threat, but of course, they need us as consumers. They need us to be able to keep their economy going. But they're definitely the biggest threat. I mean, I will say, I predict, and I'm sure others have said the same thing, but Taiwan will fall in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I've said that too. Yeah, I've said that absolutely.
And when that happens, of course, too, is Taiwan manufactures over 80% of the computer chips in the world. Look at the computer chip shortage we have right now. They can't build enough cars. They can't build enough phones. So you're looking at them controlling that much of the computer chip world as well. It's going to have a significant effect on all of us.
Well, and I agree. And I'll tell you, I mean, to me, this just kind of nails it down even more about how badly America needs to start producing in our own borders again. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to. I mean, I guess I've just never been able to understand this, this world game that all these countries play. I mean, what benefit at the end of the day, I mean, it makes no sense to me, even going back into the, like the Napoleonic Wars and stuff like that. It's never made a lot of sense to me. But here again, I mean, it could all be prevented if Americans would just pull their heads out of their asses and kind of wake up. You know what I mean? It would all be preventable. But anyway, I don't want to take up a whole lot more of your time. I really want to kind of close with something. I try to keep my podcast down to 30-minute time frame, somewhere in there. We're hitting about 36 minutes right now. It takes a long time to upload these things. If I go beyond that, it takes like 6 hours to upload these things. I'm going to read a passage and see if you know where this came from. So I'll give the title to it, but I won't give the author. So the title of it is called The Unfinished Work of Nimrod, Part 3, The Capturing of Mankind. And it says, the best way to take control over a people and control them utterly is to take a little of their freedom at a time, to erode rights by 1,000 tiny and almost imperceptible reductions. In this way, the people will not see those rights and freedoms being removed until past the point at which these changes cannot be reversed. That was man, this really almost brings tears to my eyes, but that was a quote from Adolf Hitler out of Mein Kampf.
Really?
My brother, evil only prevails when good men do nothing. And we've been doing nothing for a very, very long time. Man, we've got to start standing up. And I'm not saying that you and I aren't doing that. I'm saying we've got to get more people to start standing up. So please do me the favor and push this video out as much as you can. Let's try to do this again. You're always welcome to come on here anytime. And if there's anything that I can ever do for you, by all means, please let me know. So
let me throw this out there really quick. As a veteran, especially get organized with your VFW, your American Legion. Just spend the $30 to join these organizations. It's the banding together that's going to help us out. I work with the National Alliance to End Veteran Suicide, and they've got a race to save veteran lives. Get together with veterans and start being together with them, because apart, we are not going to succeed.
Right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. We are the backbone of this country. Obviously, small business owners are kind of the, there's two different backbones, right? You've got your military class and then you've got your business class. And I think especially if you've got people that are both, that makes them even stronger. I really do. So I agree wholeheartedly with you. And, I'll be down in your neck of the woods here soon. Maybe we can link up and grab a beer or something. And I appreciate you. I really do.
Sounds good, brother.
All right. Take care. All right.